Created live on Fireside.
Me to get over here. So
yes, please. So introduce yourself.
My name is Will Browning, and I'm actually a guest here today of Cynthia Zordich, and happy to be here. I'm an executive producer on a film called Saving the Roar, which is a unbelievable story on the 2012 Penn State football team and the adversity that they overcame that year, and sticking together, keeping the program together, and just happy to be a part of the team that's trying to get that story out to the world. So she told me about this event, and I was very happy to attend, and obviously wanted to represent the film too.
No, so. And I know Cynthia, and I know her family, and I know how much the film means to them. So thank you for joining us. So give us a little bit. I would love to hear your story. How did you get involved in all this?
Oh, so that's a funny story. So as Hollywood is, I guess. So I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
I moved out about 18 years ago to Beverly Hills. I have an insurance practice, so I sell life and disability insurance. Have a large athlete client list. A lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people in front of the camera and behind the camera. I've been very blessed. It's a great business. One of my dear friends and client of 20 years had an exit from a business, and a very nice exit from a business, and he's a Penn Stater. And he really was adamant that he felt like the real story from that 2012 team was how these young men really banded together to overcome some of the hills that they were faced with. And so I introduced him to a really good friend of mine and client who is an award-winning director, and we literally sat at the Beverly Hills Hotel, mapped it out on a napkin, and by the time we were all done, they both turned to me and said, "So you're going to be an executive producer on this?" I said, "What is that?" They said, "Well, you put this together." So that's how this works. So I said, "Hey, I'm happy to be part of it," and it's been wonderful. It's really been a highlight for me personally. I played baseball in college, so
sports,
and I obviously have followed the story tradition program at Penn State, and so just to be a part of that group to put this story out there, so it's been phenomenal. So that's kind of but I've been to Happy Valley, been to State
Happy
College.
Valley,
It's one of a kind, and a lot of people don't realize this, but that football program brings in a substantial amount of money for that community.
Yes.
And so had that program collapsed, which at some points in time there were a lot of people that thought it might happen. That would really be detrimental to that community. So those guys really saw that, and so they committed to staying and sticking there and for the community and playing for the community. And so it's really special to be a part of that. And when you go there and you're with those gentlemen, you're like walking with royalty. I mean, it's something to be.
One of my best friends went to Penn State. But the other thing is that is really the heart of those young men that you talked about.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they, and Cynthia Zordich, Michael Zordich is one of the guys that's involved in it. It really was a special group of boys. And, I talk about this on the podcast all the time. I really believe that we all have a path, whether you believe in God or whether you believe in the universe. I believe in God, but that we all don't always find it. And it really is about your story and what your morals are and what is your background and what you are to the core. And the fact that group of boys was put together is no accident.
At the right time.
It's no accident. It was God's path.
And I'll even go a step further to say with Michael Zordich and with Michael Maldi, they were legacy players.
Right.
Both their fathers played at Penn State. So even more so, sort of, they kind of accepted this challenge. And a lot of which gets overlooked is that year, and when the sanctions came out by the NCAA, one of them was that you could transfer. This was before the transfer portal.
Oh, right.
You could transfer to another program and not have to sit out a year.
Right.
And by the way, if you're a university and you're at max scholarships, but you bring in a Penn Stater, we'll allow you to go over.
Right.
So some unheard of
crazy
events.
Things were happening. I mean, I remember all of that. I played sports in college as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second. That's going to really hurt that Penn State. Like, I was like, No, I mean, the circumstances were awful. I'm not really awful, but you had to think about the people that weren't involved in those circumstances. They still had lives too, and they had, dreams. And so the fact that, right, they put that in there, that was very nerve wracking. And then that group. So continue what you were going to say.
They really stepped up. I mean, it's also when you would say some of the adults were really nowhere to be found. It was these young men that sort of banded together, and they literally, this really blew me away when we were talking about this story, and the guys were sitting around the table, we'd finished dinner, and they kept using the word war room. Right. War room. And I'm thinking, you guys are in college, and you guys had to create a war room now. Right. And what that was all hands on deck. And they literally broke down all the position players and who was going to basically go back and make sure that they were committed and re-recruit them. They were re-recruit. Meanwhile, you had other schools. You had Illinois on campus. Right. You had other schools that were actively recruiting. So it was a lot going on at that time. And these are young men.
Right, young. I mean, right. And you can't, as we know, when we're young, our brains are not always there, right?
And the year before, they were 11-1, and that one loss was to Alabama, and Alabama went on to win the national championship that year. So you're thinking you're coming back to this 2012. We have a shot at playing for the national championship. Right. And 6 weeks before, when the NCAA levied those sanctions, it really was tough. But the real heart of those guys and the families, bonds, and just and I'll also say the alumni football players, which are the Lettermen. That's what the group is called. They, within a few days' moment notice on a request from Bill O'Brien, all converged to Happy Valley to come talk to the players. Wow. And their message was, you're not going to be able to see this now.
Right.
But you staying here years from now is where you're really going to understand. And, for a group of young men facing all these challenges, it was, I think, meant a lot that these gentlemen paused their lives, very successful people. A lot of them flew in on their own planes. Right. But to come and spend the time with these young men, it was really, they had always heard about the Letterman, but now they felt it. And so it really, the story just really plays out. It's unbelievable. So we're just happy to be able to tell it and really want to get these guys, the story out there for what they did. Yeah. So it's a great sports story, but it's also a great human story. I mean, look, a couple years ago, at the start of all this COVID, no one signed up for this. Right. It's something that came unexpected, and so, but you have to overcome the adversity. You have to fight through it. You have to figure it out. And so these guys, very similar, they didn't sign up for that. They didn't, but they dealt with it, in
the best way they could. And they did. Yeah. But they dealt with it in a very brave and honorable way, So tell people where they can find Save and find you as well. You have a business as well.
Yeah. So I have an insurance firm. It's called the MB Group, mbgroup.org, and I'm sorry, mbgroup.net.
Don't go to org. Don't go to org.
Yeah, and it's a great firm. My partner's been doing the business for 43 years. And we love what we do. Yeah. The movie, we're in talks right now with networks and streamers, and so we're hoping to have some good news soon with where it's going to land. But we really are wanting to bring it to all the homes across the country and really allow everyone to see this. We're also working on a version of the film that's going to get condensed into about a 45-minute film, but it's going to be educational. And our goal there is to go across the country to high schools and colleges and really sort of, identify and tell the story, but, point out the lessons learned and really, some of the educational, aspects of it. Pivotal Moments Media, which I'm also involved with, is really focused on mental fitness and mental wellness.
Love that.
And putting out content around that. And so Pivotal Moments Media wants to basically sponsor and take this course. We're working with athletic directors across the country to sort of get this message into the school. So there's a lot to come. It's not just a film. It's, kind of a call to action. Right. And really want to take advantage of what this story is and what it means and how it could lessons learned and how it can help, kids that are coming up, not just athletes, but everyone. Right. It's just a great story on coming together.
So. And one of the things I was saying earlier is, even the guests of it, you're not part of the NFL, but the guests that come to this luncheon, everyone has such a heart.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone is about helping and being there. I keep hitting my mic, sorry. Everyone's here about helping and encouraging others. And so that's why I absolutely love being a part of this, because you can just feel everyone's heart. So thank you for doing what you're doing and helping that group. But seeing the bigger picture, right? You saw a bigger picture and what it can do, and then the school part. So thank you. And
my pleasure.
So nice
I'm
meeting you.
happy to be here. Nice to meet you. And
Yes.
happy to be on your podcast.
Yes, YNS Live with NFL Thread.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.